Is here. We're all in attendance. So the next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
Thank
So
you.
there is one thing I'd like to move the, is it Avienda with variances to an action item?
Okay, so that is
Did you
item
print the
6B,
agenda?
Pardon? Item, 5 and 6.
5 and 6.
Harry, did you print? I didn't print a copy of the agenda.
You should have a copy of the agenda.
Was sitting at our.
Oh, here it is. Thank you.
Okay, any other changes to the agenda?
President Pedersen.
Yes.
Matters, as we discussed at our agenda setting meeting, the item regarding the authorization for resolution 24.9 for you to sign the cooperative agreement. We're still working through some final details and specifications manual. So I'd suggest pulling that and we will bring it back to you in February for approval. That's
Okay.
item 7B.
Okay. Any other changes? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the amended agenda as we've discussed, say aye. Aye. None opposed. Next, the matters of public interest. Do we have anyone who would like to speak to the board? Again, speakers will be acknowledged by the president. Wait to be recognized, state your name and address for the record, and limit your comments to more than 3 minutes. Do we have anyone who would like to speak?
Yes,
Yes. Go ahead, sir.
yes. My name's Larry Cook, 471 Bighorn Drive, Chanhassen, Minnesota, 55317. I'm here to, unfortunately, again, object to this meeting. I view the meeting as being held illegally. There is a lack of quorum of duly appointed managers appointed in conformance with Chapter 103D, Section 311, and particularly Subdivision 3C. In my view, those actions taken by this body will be illegal or at least unauthorized, and any payments authorized under this case, excuse me, be subject to recoupment. And I believe anyone dealing with the watershed is doing so at their own peril. So that's number one. Number two, the list of the newspapers, I don't know what qualifies as a newspaper. Also, there was a listing of some newspaper at Becker, Minnesota, without stating the coverage for that newspaper. And overall arching question I would have is the entire area of the district covered by a newspaper? Another item I have is I didn't see any detail as to the expenditures for each of the watersheds. I don't think I missed it, but I didn't see the detail specifically for each one of the watersheds. I'll move on to, Lake Lucy violations have been for some time, and I don't know why something hasn't been done. My question is there a plan to deal with these violations? Similarly, for the other violations that are listed on the permitting report or violation report. Excuse me. The other thing I noted is that there's listed in the staff report, again, many requests for access to data. And my question is, do we charge for those? Do we charge fees? I believe this might be proprietary data. And if we don't charge fees for this data, why is there some effort at certain times to try to make people pay for the provision of other data that has been requested from the district? Also, I note that Lake Ann Lyme apparently has continuing issues, and I'm asking what is the plan to deal with the Lake Ann Lyme? Finally, a raised point about St. Hubert's. It was unclear what they're not paying for or what they haven't paid for, but I think in fairness, obviously, to all other grant requests, et cetera, they should be paying what they've agreed to pay. And with that, I'm finished. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anybody else wishes to speak to the Board of Managers? I do not see anyone. So we will proceed to reading and approval of minutes. We're working on the minutes from December 11th workshop first.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes as written for the December 11th workshop.
I'll second.
Thank you. Any changes? Any comments? None. So all those who are in favor of approving the minutes from the December 11th workshop, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. Next, the minutes of the December 11th regular meeting of the Board of Managers.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the December 11th regular meeting of the Board of Managers.
Second.
Thank you. Any changes or additions? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the December 11th Board of Managers meeting, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? None. All right. We are now on to committee and member reports. And we will adopt the resolution after we have had a chance to have any discussion that the board would like to pursue for the Citizens Advisory Committee, the staff, the administrator report, the engineer's report, or the regulatory report. So do I have someone here from the CAC who would like to report for us?
Yes,
Hi, Marilyn. How are you?
good. So I'll make it short and sweet. We had an end of the year gathering that included a potluck, so we only met very briefly, less than an hour. We had the Board of Managers report and a real brief Minnesota Watershed Conference report. We kind of said goodbye to our outgoing CAC members, Dave Paulson and Terry Jorgensen, I believe are the departing members. And then our next meeting is January 27th. I'm not sure if the new CAC members will be starting then or if it'll be February. I think Liz is planning on something to welcome them as well. So that is it.
Thank you, Marilyn. Any questions, comments from any of the board managers? As long as we're here, anybody want to volunteer to be at the January 27th meeting representing the board at the CAC meeting?
I will.
Okay. Tom's it. Okay, next we have the administrator, the staff, the engineer, and the regulatory report. Mr. Jeffries, do you have anything that you would like to comment on first?
President Pedersen, managers know if there's any questions on any of the reports, happy to answer those, but otherwise.
Great. Great. Any questions from the board managers on any of the reports that are listed?
President,
Yes.
wondering there's I think it's on page 1, regulatory reform. And it's talking about the regulatory program, and you're meeting with various people to figure out what to modify, if anything. I'm just wondering if dates have been set and if the board is going to have any input on the process at all.
President Pedersen, Manager DeVell, no dates have been set, and yes, it will be imperative that we have the board's input on it, because ultimately you are the ones that are going to be saying these are the rules that we want you to enforce.
But before a meeting, will it be like a workshop or something, or how do you propose, or how do you think that'll play out? Just curious.
President Pedersen, Manager DeVell, we have not given it a tremendous amount of thought yet, but what I would see happening is we would work with legal counsel on the things that we have heard from the board, come up with something for at least for you to react to, so we aren't just asking you an open-ended question of what is it you want us to write. And then we would meet with you and work through that as we have in the past. We'll need to bring it to the technical advisory committee as well, as they'll be the ones that will be the most impacted by it.
It seems like it's come up on a number of different meetings talking about the rules because we're always working on the variances and the exceptions. It seems like that would be an important focus of some element of what we're doing.
President Pedersen, Manager DeVell, I would like to emphasize that you will never, ever get rid of variances. It will not happen. We can try, but every modification we have ever made to the rules has been a direct result of variances that we have received. And almost invariably, the next application is a variance from that modification that we just made.
Yes.
Pedersen. Okay, so for this next round, since the tax going to be crucial, I think for me, a big important part is going to be reaching out to our cities and seeing what they can live with to begin with. That's one of the reasons I'm trying to meet with Brian and Jack next week. Because if they can't live with it, then we're in trouble. So, I mean, they're a big part of the tax. So I think we're seeing a lot of movement within the cities and people that care about the parks and all of that. So I feel like there's a change, and you and I are on the same page, but I know for sure. And so it might be a different context this time. That's what I'm saying. So the more that we can encourage those relationships and the discussions to kind of talk through some of that and see what's in line with what their comprehensive plans are and what they're trying to do in the same spirit that we're concerned about. So, Tom, I guess that's what.
Yes.
I mean, because otherwise, what we're learning is the rules are never going to be adequate enough to cover.
I
what
guess-
we wanna do.
I guess to modify the notion that, to your point, so I recognize that if you make a rule, somebody's going to have an exception. That's just life. But it seems like from my perspective, the kind of variances we're dealing with are, we've pushed every possible way we can push this rule into a corner and to make it still look like it's part of the rule. So it feels like, to me, it feels like we've exhausted the realm of what's a normal variance, as opposed to the rules just don't fit anymore. So everybody is pushed into this corner, and then we're kind of dancing around on the last little bit of ice to try and stay afloat, that we're still dealing with the basic rule and the notion of a variance. That's just an observation. I don't know if that's true or not, but
President Pedersen, Manager DeVell, in many ways it is. I think some of the things, so the more robust rule revisions that we've done, we've actually invited contractors and developers into the room as well. To work with them. One of the things that we will all need to consider is what is an exception in terms of if people come through with something that is outside of the box and perhaps garners other benefits that we're not the 1.1, 60, 90 that we're after. Is there some way to give that merit? And those are the things we'll have to look at. I think that's our better approach to the variances overall than, because really, we set a standard. They work as hard as they can to meet it. Engineer Sobiak, and then go back and forth. We get to a point where we feel that we've honestly exhausted all possibilities to achieve that standard. So now then it stops. So it gets to the point of, do we want to look at other things? I'll use Aviana because they're here. It's a prime example where they've exhausted those. They also set aside, was it 10 acres of woodland? 23 acres of woodland, which at this point it wouldn't be accounted for in our permit, but perhaps there is some way that we would look at that through our permitting process. So I think we'll have to be creative, and I think there'll be significant back and forth between all of the stakeholders involved, cities being a prime one.
In the county too, probably. Or even the state agency.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it seems like that's at the center of everything we're dealing with now.
Yep.
Our standards are being challenged everywhere. I mean, the underlying rules. So we need to figure out, kind of a base set of ideas to work from and build rules around that and get creative, I guess.
Well, the other change is climate change has changed the whole picture. So
That's part of that
Yeah.
driving force.
I had one other.
Okay, you have another question or a comment?
So under Riley Creek watershed, Lake Riley Elm treatment, not that one, sorry, one above. Wetland restoration at Pioneer Trail.
Mhm.
Staff removed 2 blocks from the outlet structure. What does that mean exactly?
So the outlet structure from the wetland that goes into the county ditch system has 5 blocks in the weir.
Cement
So
blocks.
we can adjust that elevation.
Okay.
But when the elevation gets too high, it makes it really hard for the contractor to get in there and do any management. So we pulled 2 of the blocks out to draw down that water so that
Okay.
management can be done. And then we can put those blocks back to restore the hydrology.
Okay, I was trying to figure, okay, thanks.
So it's a temporary drawdown.
Any other comments or questions?
I have one more. This is on the repair and maintenance fund. And comment was, this was to develop a formalized grant program maintenance of the BPMs. And one common theme heard from all the departments and municipalities that long-term maintenance practices installed on city land, especially emerging practices or those requiring special knowledge to maintain, creates hesitance in writing and wanting to implement. And then the comment is, I don't know who did this internally here, but it may be of interest for the board for the watershed district and the resources that we're charged with managing to develop a model to migrate or mitigate these concerns. So I've heard that directly from a couple of the meetings I've had. So I'm just wondering, I'm just throwing it out as an idea. If we thought about it, or if we should think about the watershed being the focus of coordinating that effort beyond just having a contract in hand, something that where we might actually have a group that does that, or something where we contract out and because we're the holders and developers of most of the expertise in dealing with this, if it wouldn't make sense to have it housed here somehow rather than the city says, well, do this. Okay, we'll do it for 6 months or a year. And then all of a sudden it just disappears. And so we have the same thing here. So that might be a strategy to do it for a couple of years until we get the landscapers and other people kind of on in the game plan to how to do it. Where we do that, we monitor it. We might have somebody that actually stays with the process with the contractors. Anyway, it's just a thought. I don't know if that's in the.
President Pedersen, Manager DeVell, you were way ahead of us. That is a lot of where we're going, looking at, so Capital Region Watershed District, South Washington, do they do maintenance? Rice Creek does. So there are a number of
Ramsey,
watershed
Washington.
districts that do it. Ramsey, Washington. Yeah, that's who I was thinking of. And there are a number of, we could go to a variety of, whether it be here's money to maintain it all the way to we will have some type of a public works department or perhaps something in between. We'll take care of, non-structural BMPs, but structural BMPs you need to take care of. So yes, all of those would be on the table and that would be where we would want to engage the cities because that is almost universally what I've heard. We're not opposed to putting in these structures. We don't have the knowledge or the staff to maintain them though, and that's our concern or their concern. So
Manager Crafton and I were at the Bloomington, who's our partner down there, the preserve, and they've got that fabulous garden set up and all the landscaping done. And I think they hire an outside
Contractor.
contractor to deal with it. And it seems like, and maybe you can address it, but it doesn't seem like there's a lot of people that have that expertise.
That is 100% correct. That is the problem.
So
There's just not enough
Definitely
people.
equal
There's not enough
Yeah.
manpower. They can't find the people for open staff positions. I've got people on my crew, but are those people really competent in figuring out how to do native plant restoration? Heck, no.
even trimming plants.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's,
We have a lawn service that comes in and everybody tells them to stay away from anything.
yeah. Yeah, it's a problem. There is a huge staffing issue with that.
So it seems like it would fit into our program somehow to be dealing with that, to provide intermediate, long-term, and have it be a program that we phase out of after a while, once it seems like it's self-sustaining.
Yeah.
But it seems like it's come up in a number of different areas where we do good things and then 2 years it's gone.
So when we were doing the workshop, Seth, Bruce, they're hiring staff there.
At the preserve.
Yeah, and so
Carver.
that, one of my points is that, I mean, I see it at the Bowser Board, all this money is going to SWCDs and for capacity, so that's state money. Why can't we ask them to help? And we do, we've got a contract
Yeah.
for about 60 grand at least to, like with the cost share projects and some of that, but it would seem like natural fit because it'd be statewide almost, that you could, that something could be set up so they could be used to go out, at least inspect and identify whether there's a problem or what's going on. So that's another relationship to pursue.
At the convention, I talked to the people who run Minnesota Native Landscapes. And they said to me, well, how big is this that you want us to, I mean, because, they're looking for larger sites. They do not want something where they're going to have to drive a half an hour and look at something for 10 minutes. They want, how many acres is this going to be? Not, it's a number of square feet that they've got to take care of.
That's somebody's yard.
Yeah. That's the problem.
Yeah, but staff at SWCD can be trained to do that stuff. So
Yes.
So Administrator Jeffrey, how are we planning to try and work this in somewhere? Is this part of our planning process to figure out how to deal with it, or?
Yes, this will be part of the planning process itself. When
Okay.
we start looking at what are our next capital projects, what do we want to implement within the district, this would be one of the things that we'd be talking about, how we want to do it. Do we want one person in-house just to be a project manager and 5 people? Do we want, so there's a lot to work through on this. Maybe it's a consortium of all the cities and they have a person on staff each place that has somebody with that expertise, and we help offset that cost and training. Be a number of things. We've got a lot to work through on it before we can get to what that solution will be.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from?
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-001.
Thank
We had a little champagne.
Thank you.
second,
Thank you. Okay, any other questions before we vote? I don't see anything. All those in favor of adopting 2025-001, please say aye.
I'm sorry, the resolution is to receive the committee reports.
So all those who are in favor of adopting the committee reports, say aye. Aye. None opposed. We are now on to consent agenda. We do have items 5 and 6 that are removed. So it looks like we have all the rest. I'm looking for some sort of a motion.
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 25-002 to approve the following items by consent. That's includes resolution 25-003, 25-004, 25-005, 25-006, and approved payment application number 2 for Pedersen's Company for Lake Susan Park Pond reuse retrofit. and to approve permit number 2023-066
Right.
for Horseshoe Curve as presented in the recommended board action section of the permit review.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? That's it.
And you'll second. You, that's it.
That's it.
Okay, all those who are in favor of adopting resolution 25-002 with all the items that David listed for us, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. New business. We have two items that were pulled, which is items 5 and 6 on the consent agenda. How would you like to have us proceed for this, Mr. Jeffrey?
I guess I would just suggest that we field any questions the managers have. And
Okay.
This is, you remember, we went through this last month. There are representatives here as well, if you have specific questions for them. Otherwise, we will do our best to answer your questions.
So I have two questions, unless David wants to go first.
Well, I have two questions too. On two variances, can you go through just briefly? I know we've heard them already, but can you go through them just briefly so we make sure we understand before we vote on the variances?
President Pedersen, Manager Ziegler. In terms of the two variances, the first variance is related to a variance from providing compensatory storage within the floodplain, same floodplain that's being filled. The reason they're not able to do that is because they're filling in some of the existing BMPs, but they're replacing those BMPs with new BMPs on the site. And there's actually a net increase in floodplain storage as a result. So because of this net increase in floodplain storage, they're also able to show a significant reduction in peak discharges leaving the site, and they're meeting the water quality criteria. So for those reasons, we're saying there's enough information for the board to make a decision on the variance. The second variance is related to the regional stormwater management plan and allowing regional stormwater management on a restricted site. This variance, again, they need this variance. They've demonstrated that the site is restricted. They've done infiltration testing out there. Infiltration rates, I think the highest one was 0.02 inches per hour. Many of the tests came back at 0. So for those reasons, they're proposing a lot of rainwater harvest and reuse on the site. And they're providing abstraction with that, as well as 797 trees are planned to be planted out there. So they're providing abstraction to the maximum extent practicable. If this project were to come through on a sort of a smaller piece by piece subdivision, each one of those would also qualify for this restricted site determination. So by allowing restricted site on this regional plan, there's really no difference than if it were to come through on a piece by piece difference from a resource protection perspective. But from a management perspective, it becomes easier to manage a large regional reuse system with one stormwater pumping distribution system as opposed to, 4 or 5 different smaller systems out there.
So one comment, I'm not sure if I totally understood, was that the grading was done after the initial tests in the areas where the BMPs would be, so that the restricted site was partly because of the mass grading. Is that true, or did I misunderstand that?
President Pedersen, Manager Ziegler. So the infiltration testing that occurred out there, if we go back in time to like the first development of this site, there was infiltration testing done before any grading was done. Those tests came back and showed you should be able to provide some infiltration. Permit got issued, they went out, they did the mass grading, and now they're down deep enough to the elevations where these BMPs are to be placed. And they did more infiltration testing, and that's when they came back so low. So initially they weren't able to get deep enough to get tests at the bottom of the BMPs. So there could be some impact from grading. It's more likely it's just the tighter soils were down deeper. The soil borings did show clays down deep. So it's likely that's just an artifact of the natural soils.
Right, so the soils that were there in the field or whatever it was before were more pervious than the stuff that was way down deep.
Correct.
Compaction wasn't an issue.
Not to our knowledge.
That's all I had.
So I have a variation on that question. So we went through this at quite length and at the December meeting, as I recall. And I'm just wondering, I couldn't remember what the big issues were for deferring December to now. And so I'm wondering if you can highlight the differences between December and now that makes this thing to go forward.
President Pedersen,
I
Manager
mean,
Duval.
maybe you answered that already, but I didn't.
The primary difference is the additional 3 weeks of time gave us time to work with the developer and their engineer so that they could demonstrate that they were meeting all of the water quality criteria.
Okay,
At the December meeting, there still appeared to be a potential shortfall.
okay,
But through the additional analysis, stormwater modeling, they were able to demonstrate that they're able to meet the non-degradation piece, meaning that the water quality coming off the site after development is better than what was out there pre-development.
President Pedersen, Manager Bell, the other thing we wanted to work through is to make sure that we had a functional maintenance declaration with the developer so that we knew how this would work.
okay.
It's a very complicated site, and working through all this, I knew was going to take a while.
And the last question I have is on the report that's it's part of your packet. We have on item L, it says that we were owed $14,948 in permit fee, and as of the end of December, we hadn't received it yet. Have we received that now?
There.
Yes, we have.
Okay, that's it.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the variation from rules B and J for 2024-078 Avienda Regional Stormwater Management as presented in the potential board variance action section of the permit review.
And how about the permit as well? Going to do that too? That's item 6.
If we can do it together,
Yeah, I
that's
think
fine
we
with
can,
me.
we?
Madam President, we typically take those up as separate.
And approve permit number 2024-0.
Madam President,
Yes.
we typically take the variance up as a separate motion and then
Okay.
once approved, take up the permit.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, so
Be back.
I withdraw my last change.
Okay,
I'll second it.
you'll second it. All right, so now we are,
Pedersen,
yes,
discussion,
go ahead.
point of order, whatever it is.
Question.
A question. I just wanted to say that I appreciate Avienda using the regional stormwater approach instead of doing it individually, since we have a restricted site at this point in time, and I think it's a better option than going individually. So I appreciate the work that you've done working with the watershed on that.
I just want to clarify, that envelope does not actually include the check.
There's no check in there?
There's a different check in there. We will get the other check before the permit is issued to us. That check is for an extension. I just wanted to make sure that you weren't under.
Okay, thank you so much, like your honesty.
Jill has a question too.
Yes, Jill.
Okay, so you're on this, right? The compliance part? All right, just double check.
Yes.
Okay, so as this goes forward, then you check periodically, or how does that work?
Manager Pedersen, Manager Crafton. In order to check, what we do is as each individual piece comes in now, there'll be an accounting system where they'll show, here's how much we've created with these regional BMPs, whichever pieces have been implemented. Here's how much this, call it subparcel or individual parcel, needs for their credit to align with what's being approved here today. And that's just a pluses and minuses. And the idea is it never goes negative.
But is like there a spreadsheet out there, then you're tracking this stuff? or-
There will have to be. Right now, we don't have that tool set up. We'll have to set that tool up.
Just checking. Thank you.
President Pedersen, managers, I do want to take this as an opportunity to go back to a conversation we were having earlier about variances. So this is one of those variances that'd be very easy to get rid of, the not being able to replace it in the same water basin. When we know they're going to be giving us that volume, if that basin does not exist, the variance, we could get rid of that variance very easily by rewriting the,
I would add the regional
yes.
restricted sites and regional stormwater management is also a pretty simple adjustment to the rule.
Okay, it seems to me that we now are ready to vote at least on the first of the two, which is the
Very
2024-078.
Variance.
Yes, yes. Everybody okay? Yes? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. Next.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve permit 2024-076.
078.
I'm sorry, 078.
Yep.
Avienda Regional Storm Management as presented in the recommended board approval section of permit proposal.
I need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any questions or other comments? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving permit 2024-078, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. All right. Thank you very much. We appreciate all your hard work.
Complicated and probably painful for, I think we got to a place.
Wow.
Uh,
We'll do it again. I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
We'll be seeing more of you. Okay, next, we are on item 7B, which is adopting the resolution for the December treasurer's report and approving payment of the bills.
Make a motion to approve the December financial statements and the paying of the bills.
Okay, I need a second.
Second.
Second, we got that. Any questions, comments? Hearing none, all those who are in favor of adopting resolution 25-007, please say aye. None opposed. We're now on to authorizing the administrator prepare and distribute the RFQ for professional services for 26-27.
I would like to make a motion to adopt resolution 25-008, authorizing the administrator to prepare and distribute requests for quotes for professional services for 2026 and 2027. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And
Question.
yes, you have a question.
So when would this go out approximately? This
President Pedersen, Manager Devel,
protocol for how it would go out and when it would go out.
so in the past, we haven't submitted the RFQs until later in the summer this year, however, but what we ran into is with auditors, we have their audit cycle ends mid-year, so we need to get those on board. So I would see us putting out the RFQ probably in March, trying to award in April or May.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of adopting resolution 25-008, please say aye. Aye. None opposed. And now we are on to electing our new staff for president, vice president, treasurer, and board, for the board and the secretary as well.
So I'd like to make a motion on a slate of candidates for president, Dorothy Pedersen, for vice president, Bonnie Nelson, for secretary, Jill Crafton, for treasurer, Tom Duval. Do you want the committees too?
No, we'll just do 25-010 first.
Okay.
I have a question.
Who's secretary?
Could you repeat that, please, Manager Ziegler? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I switched it around. So for President, Dorothy Pedersen, Vice President, Bonnie Nelson, Secretary, Jill Crafton, and Treasurer, Tom Duval. And my thought process is we need people that are trained for backup purposes. And, you know, if we keep the same people in the same position, we don't get that cross training.
I just had a question.
Okay.
So this doesn't in any way, I mean, you can still serve on Minnesota watersheds and that capacity and,
I can, but it's a 3-year term, so, you know, that'll eventually be up and will be good to have someone else on.
right,
And I know that the treasurer's position, they want somebody's in the Twin Cities near the bank. And,
okay.
and the accountant. So,
Right. I just wondered how,
because in that position, I have traveled to see the accountant a number of times to try and expedite some stuff. Otherwise, she puts it in the mail, then I have to sign it and put it in the mail. So when the mail is, it's Christmas and the mail is taking 2 weeks, that means somebody has to wait a while before they get paid. And some of these people are not, you know, big companies that can,
right, wait.
Board to do it.
yeah,
Well, you've been doing a really good job on that, so I just wanted to make sure that,
yeah, I can still do that.
okay, good.
Okay, do I have a second on the slate of candidates? Okay. So I'm not sure how we should do that.
President Pedersen, manager's recommendation, I believe Mr. Smith would agree with this, would be to vote on this slate. If it has a majority, then we are done with it. If not, another slate would come forward and we would vote on that.
Okay, so
Or
should
you
I
go
be
to us.
calling each individual manager for this, or can we do this as a complete?
So Manager President Pedersen, Mr. Smith will do the roll call
All
vote
right.
for each manager on this.
Okay, on this resolution electing a slate of officers, Manager Crafton,
Yes,
Manager Duval,
Yes,
Manager Nelson,
Yes.
Manager Ziegler,
yes.
President Pedersen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Well, gee whiz, there we have it. Congratulations all. Thank you very much for serving as vice president last year. And we're really glad that you're doing the thing with, because I'm like, so glad you're there. So thank you so much with the watershed.
Sure.
Okay, we are now on to appointing managers to the standing committees.
So I would like to make a motion to the following slate of candidates for committee appointments. For the Audit and Finance Committee, I nominate Jill Crafton and Tom Duval. For the Governance Committee, I nominate Bonnie Nelson and David Ziegler. And for the Personnel Committee, I nominate Dorothy Pedersen and Jill Crafton.
I second it.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we are ready for you to do the roll call vote, Mr. Smith.
Or if we
Okay,
have-
on,
We could have some discussion if somebody doesn't want to be on one of these committees.
I got it.
I'm not hearing anything.
Okay,
All right, Mr. Smith, proceed.
on approval of committee assignments, Manager Crafton,
yes,
Manager Duval,
yes,
Manager Nelson,
Yes.
She said yes.
okay, Manager Ziegler,
yes.
President Pedersen.
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you all very much. And we are now on to discussion items.
What's that?
You're on the Audit and Finance, Jill, and the Personnel Committee. So that's what she's doing next year. All right, discussion items. We have the artist review and selection process for North Lotus Lake. I'm assuming this is Mr. Jeffrey.
Yep, President Pedersen, managers, as you will remember a few months ago, you authorized an amendment to the task order for Bar Engineering on the North Lotus Lake project. With that, we sent out an RFQ for artists that to work with the design team to incorporate interactive educational art into the project overall. We received 7 candidates. Of those, one immediately rose to the top in the 5 categories that we evaluated. Those categories that were evaluated was understanding of the project, durability of the materials being used, experience working with government units, incorporation of ecological components into the plan, and help me, the engineer Sobiak. Oh, you forgot it too. And the last one was a really good component at any rate. So actually, yeah, we are not recommending anyone to the board tonight. What I wanted to do is talk to you about the process at our workshop prior to the February meeting. I will give you all of the RFQs that were received, as well as the scoring matrix that we used. What we would like to do is make a recommendation to the board for this artist team that we have, but give you the materials so that you can review through it. We'll talk through it at the workshop, why we feel that that is the case. Our hope is with the retention of the artist team that we will get several concepts from them that we can then come up with a selection committee that we have not quite determined what the composition will be, but I would assume it'd be perhaps a member of the CAC, a member of the board, a staff from here, a member of the Parks and Rec Commission, a member of maybe City Council or Planning, and a staff from Chanhassen to look at these elements then that the artist puts forward and say yay or nay, or could we modify in this way? So that's where we're at in this process. The awarded artist at this phase will not be awarded to actually construct or build anything, will just be part of the design team. And they will have a stipend, what was a stipend of $8,000 for their design costs. And then we bring that and then decide if we want to move forward. So we'd have estimates of what those, was that the other one, cost? It might have, no, it wasn't cost. Well, corporation, durability, interactivity of the art, the ability to, did you say that?
Yeah.
That's what I thought you said. Yeah, nice job. Nice work. Were you part of that review? So, and then go from there. The most of the arts, just so you kind of have an idea of what it was. So, most of the pieces that people put forward in their portfolio really were in kind of that $7,000 to $12,000 range. So there were not near, I expected it to be a lot more. They did have some pieces that were in the $50,000 range, but I was pleasantly surprised because I was prepared to be frightened, but it was not as frightening as I thought it might be. So just to kind of give you an idea of, and the ones who had more durable, they tended to work in stainless steel, ceramic, and other metal products.
So the workshop that we talk about, this is not this Friday's workshop. This is our next board workshop outside the.
Correct. So the
mission
February
values,
8th
right.
or February 2nd, whatever
Okay.
date that is,
Okay.
we will meet
Fifth.
prior to that.
5th.
5th. Okay. We'll meet prior to that and go over this at that time. So we'll do that at that workshop. The other thing that workshop will be going through each of our fund balances from 2024 and where we're at with that. So the 2 items.
Where was the write-up on that? Was it in your report or was it someplace? I remember reading those.
It's in my report. It was in the administrator's report, yes.
Okay. I had one other question. Since I will not be here Friday, are there any questions that I could at least write some answers to that would contribute or not?
For our mission, vision, and values? What I would suggest is that perhaps you and I find a time to meet afterwards. We can go through some of the things that we went through as a panel and get your input on it. Because I think it's very important that we get your input. And so that would be my suggestion.
I had been invited to the
Yes.
DNR roundtable in November and I just didn't have it on my calendar, so. But that's something that, it's important because I establish relationships when I'm there and you get to talk to people and ask questions. Emily Javens is now doing shorelines work, so I really want to connect with her if she's going to be there by chance. And
Was she with the DNR now?
yeah, that's where she went. She's been there about a year. I saw her at the tribal state relations training up north, so she said she's happy.
Hey, looks like
But I
we
believe
are,
Madam
yes,
Chair,
yes.
awesome.
Pedersen. I just wanted to express my interest in being part of that design committee as a representative from Chanhassen. I think that would be
Oh, yeah,
appropriate.
yeah,
Just throwing that out there. for
I think it is.
a Preemptive strike.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so we are now on to the update for the lawsuit. You all should have received an email directly before the meeting from Lewis.
Chance to read it.
So if you did not and you still have questions, we can go to closed session. This is completely up to all of you.
If Jill hasn't read it, seems like we should go to closed session just so she
President
has a
Pedersen, members,
chance.
I think it would probably be beneficial, just because even with reading it, there still might be some questions that managers might have.
Okay.
It is a bit convoluted trying to track all of the different things we've got going on.
So I need to have a motion to go to closed session.
I'll move that we go to a closed session.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in
Madam
favor?
President,
Yes.
could we, for the minutes, have the note that the legal counsel is recommending that the board go into closed session to discuss litigation strategy in two pending lawsuits. First concerning Cook versus the district regarding the Spring Road Conservation Project case. And the second regarding Cook versus Hennepin and Carver County Manager Nelson, Manager Crafton in what we refer to as the appointments case. And we'd recommend that you have this closed session for the purpose of receiving confidential legal advice concerning litigation strategy.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. So I believe we have a motion and a second. All of you agree with yes?
Think we need a
All right.
call vote to go into closed session, Mr. Smith? Do we need
It
a
does not need to be roll call now.
All right. Looks like we don't have to do that. So those of you who are in our audience will be taken out and
Do vote though.
he says we don't.
We need a vote. We doesn't have to be roll call.
Oh, does that have to be roll call?
I just not.
Be voice vote.
Okay. All those in favor of going into the closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Does any manager have anything they would like to bring to us?
So Terry had sent around the request for legislative days.
Mhm.
And I would like to go to that and I would like to actually get paid for my time
Okay.
there. Yeah. I mean, it's not, it's just per diems and mileage.
Is that the Minnesota watersheds one?
Yep.
Legislative day? Well, usually
Correct.
we've attended those.
Yeah, I believe that's even in our governance as something that managers can attend and take, that you're not available.
I'd
You-
like to, what's the date?
February
April 20,
17th. No, I think it's 17th or
Start
something.
bringing it.
February
It's like the middle. Yeah, 19th.
19th
I'm
and
sorry, I
20th.
won't be here.
It'll probably be someplace.
You're
warm.
not that sorry though.
Is that a Monday?
February 19th.
It is a Wednesday, Thursday.
And I guess along with that, I'd like to know, I know the first time I attended, I was only on the CAC, but somebody had set up meetings with all of the people for, our,
Legislators.
yeah. And it was nice to, rather than have everyone having to set up their own meetings, having a group meeting. And I think it was more effective too, because you go in with one person and you're talking, and then they hear the same thing later from somebody else and again and again. It seems like you're wasting their time. Whereas if you go in all together and say, okay, this is what we support and we would like you to support it type of thing.
It's more of a delegation going into their office.
Right.
As opposed to a one person.
Right.
Laying a complaint.
Right.
So at least one year, Grace and I did that. In fact, we had a couple appointments set up. And then we just started hitting everybody that was in our area. She was all fired
So
up.
who might do that?
But it was really good because we were able, they happened to be available, so
Yeah.
we went in and did the pitch. That was Miss
Isn't
Lee's
there
fault.
some kind of a process? I
Yeah,
don't
so-
remember right.
In the President Pedersen managers, an email that was forwarded, you'll see the agenda. So on Wednesday evening from 5 to 7, they're having that reception where they invite all of the legislators to attend that. And then they ask individual managers to reach out to their specific representatives and visit them on Thursday in their offices if they can.
Okay, so maybe that's something we could coordinate with 9 Mile and, because Grace was at 9 Mile.
Yeah.
And then just hit more than one. You wouldn't just have to hit ours, but for a group to go
Right.
in, that's how the Great Lakes Coalition has been so effective, because we would have 10 people going from Minnesota. And so 10 people would go in, each one of the reps, Congress people and the senators. And if they weren't there, at least we met with staff.
Right.
So, but you have a bigger effect, I think, when you've got 10 people sitting in your office.
I think so. Yeah.
So I think your point is well taken.
Planning-
Maybe we
I've been
could,
planning
maybe
on
we
that
could
also. I went
reach out
last
and try
year.
to coordinate.
Okay, so it looks like there's going to be 3 of you from our
Okay.
group. Thank you.
You have to notice that.
I'm sorry?
Maddie's asking.
No,
that.
no.
Maddie at
Is he
the
just
Minnesota Watershed is asking for a head count, I think, basically.
Anything else from any of the other managers?
Because 3 managers.
Not hearing anything? Okay, manager reports. Now we're on to legal counsel report. Do we have anything, Mr. Smith?
Madam President, nothing further to report.
So that leads us to this Friday, we'll be meeting from noon to 3 on our mission values, from noon until 3. And did we decide on the change?
Yeah, on the 15th,
It's
yes.
on the 15th.
15th to accommodate the funeral.
Okay, so everybody knows noon to 3 on the 15th for the second Board of Manager workshop. And there's a legislative event right there, February 19th, 25, and then the summer tour up in Roseau. Huh.
Does anybody want to go to that? I want to go. I get to see Tracy if we go up
You and
there.
I could, maybe you and I will go.
Well, I would like to go too on the summer tour.
But I think we ought to carpool. This is
Oh, yes. yes.
ridiculous.
We talked about carpooling. If we go back to Nisswa, like maybe getting a minibus and all of us go on it.
Party bus?
Yes.
Except that some of us will have to stay
Leasing
for
the
the
bus
business meeting.
is more expensive than you think.
Then each one of us going up separately.
Yeah.
I don't know how much it costs to rent a bus.
I can certainly look into it. and-
Yeah, see, we'll talk
Can
about it maybe
compare
as
it.
we get a little closer.
Some of us will probably stay for the business meeting,
Yeah.
because that's when the resolutions are voted on.
Yeah. So I have to, unless they change the schedule, I have to go a day early and stay a day late.
So I think I went on Tuesday because I went to the Tuesday night thing. So if I had to go on Tuesday, I'd go.
Sure.
I mean, and the same with Friday. Well, I leave on Thursday at 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night or whatever.
Drive all night
So, yeah,
in the winter time.
Right.
yeah, not do that. So
Well,
I
and they
just got
moved
back.
the Monday business part
Yeah.
Friday, so they consolidated that. So hopefully they will continue
To
to
do
do
that.
that.
Yeah.
That helped.
All right, I think we're to the end of our meeting. I would look for a motion to adjourn.
Move we adjourn.
Second.
And we have a second. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you all very much.
All right, thanks, everyone.